Today we're going to talk about a weapon of war you've probably never heard of. It wasn't a bomb or a tank, it was a helicopter. And really, it was the entire medical system behind it. This is the incredible story of how America's ability to save its own soldiers became one of the most powerful and completely accidental psychological weapons of World War II.
Okay, so picture this. It's April 1945. We're on Okinawa. A young Japanese corporal, Tishi Yamamoto, is hunkered down in a cave, watching the American lines. And he sees something that just doesn't compute. These strange machines, helicopters, are flying in low, right near the fighting. But they're not attacking. They're landing, picking something up, and flying away. They weren't fighting at all. They were rescuing.
Everything Yamamoto had ever been taught screamed that the Americans were soft. They were weak. But this? Watching these machines just swoop in and pluck wounded guys off the battlefield with this impossible speed, it shattered that image. This wasn't weakness, this was a completely different kind of power, a kind of strength his commanders had never, ever prepared him for. So, let's really dig into this. To get why this was so earth-shattering for a soldier like Yamamoto, you have to understand where he was coming from.
I mean, look at this. It's like two completely different universes colliding. On the Japanese side, you have the calculus of sacrifice. A wounded soldier, he was a burden, a drain on things they just didn't have. His job was to tough it out, heal himself, or, die with honor. But for the Americans, it was the complete opposite. It was the arithmetic of abundance. A wounded soldier wasn't a burden, he was an investment, a valuable asset that was absolutely worth the cost to get back.
And these weren't just abstract ideas, right? These philosophies created two totally different realities for the guy on the ground.
So if you were a Japanese soldier, your world was defined by the Bushiko Code. Pain was seen as something that made you a better warrior. Medical care? Forget about it. It was pretty much non-existent. You were expected to die for the emperor, period. Suffering was just part of the deal. I mean, it gets even more intense. Back home, they were handing out bamboo spears to civilians and telling them that if they got hurt, their job was to launch one last suicide attack. That's the mindset we're talking about.
Okay, now let's flip the coin and look at the American system. And honestly, it's like we're talking about a different planet, logistically. It was a machine, a literal machine built for one purpose, to save lives. They called it the chain of evacuation, and that's exactly what it was, an assembly line, but in reverse. It was an industrial process. You've got aid stations just feet from the front lines, then ambulances whisking guys away to clearing stations, then portable surgical hospitals. We're talking places with x-ray machines right there in the field. It was this brutally efficient system with just one single goal: get that wounded soldier to a surgeon's table as fast as humanly possible.
What the Americans had basically done was figure out how to buy time. That golden hour, or even just golden minutes, between getting hit and getting surgery, that was now a commodity, something you could purchase with gears and gas and, well, helicopters.
And boy, did they have the tools. Think about this. Every single soldier carried their own morphine syringe. Plasma was so common they were hanging bags of it from rifle butts as makeshift IV stands. Penicillin was basically a miracle drug, turning what would have been a fatal infection into a recoverable injury. They even had refrigerated whole blood, flown all the way from the US. And the keystone, the thing that tied it all together, was that Sikorsky R-4 helicopter, the exact machine Yamamoto saw. It could take a journey that would have taken hours over rough terrain and shrink it down to just a few minutes.
So, what did all this add up to? Well, the result is this one staggering number. The case fatality rate, that's the percentage of wounded soldiers who actually died from their wounds, was just 4%. 4!
Now, to really understand how insane that number is, you need some context. Look at this. In the Russo-Japanese War, it was around 30%. For the Japanese army in China in the 30s, it was often even higher. So going from 30+% down to 4, that's not just an improvement, that's a fundamental change in the very nature of surviving a war.
But here's where the story takes a really interesting turn. The biggest impact of this system wasn't even on the Americans, it was on the enemy. This whole life-saving machine had this completely unforeseen and absolutely devastating psychological effect on the Japanese soldiers who saw it, and especially on the ones who actually experienced it firsthand.
Let's talk about a guy named Lieutenant Hiroshi Tanaka. He was captured on Saipan after his unit was wiped out. He's wounded, he's the enemy, he's 100% expecting to be killed on the spot. But that's not what happens, not even close. Look at this timeline. Within 20 minutes, a US medic is treating him. In under an hour, he's in a field hospital getting plasma, and just 3 hours after being captured, he's in surgery.
And he said it himself. The medical care he, an enemy prisoner, got in 3 hours was better than anything the Imperial Army had given its own soldiers in 3 years of war. I mean, think about that. This is a man who watched his own troops die because they didn't even have bandages. An experience like that doesn't just shock you, it completely shatters your reality.
And here's the really crucial part. To the Japanese soldiers, this didn't register as mercy or kindness from one person to another. What blew their minds was how efficient it all was. It was systematic. It was bureaucratic. It was like watching a factory assembly line, but for compassion. And that idea was just completely, totally alien to them.
There's actually a psychological term for this: cognitive dissonance. It's that awful, uncomfortable feeling you get when you're forced to hold two completely contradictory ideas in your head at the same time. And for these Japanese POWs, the American medical system was a giant, powerful engine designed specifically to create that feeling. Let's take another example. Sergeant Kenji Ishida. He's badly burned on Iwo Jima and gets evacuated. The next thing he knows, he wakes up on a US hospital ship. Now, all his life, propaganda has told him that Americans are literal demons, they're barbarians. But what does he see? He sees calm nurses and doctors efficiently treating his burns with the exact same care they're giving their own guys. That gap, the one between the demon in his head and the doctor changing his bandages, it was just too big to make sense of.
So what this all leads to is that this incredible medical system, it became a weapon. An accidental weapon, for sure, but a weapon nonetheless. And it struck right at the heart of Japanese military morale.
And how do we know this? Well, the Japanese high command eventually caught on. This right here is from a captured order on Okinawa. It literally forbids their own troops from even watching the American medical evacuations. They knew. They knew that just the sight of those helicopters was like poison to their soldiers' will to fight. Just stop and think about that for a second. Every single time one of those helicopters swooped in under fire, it was a piece of propaganda more powerful than any leaflet they could ever drop. The message was crystal clear. We value one of our guys so much, we will risk this expensive machine and its crew just to save him. It was a message about a society's core values, and for an enemy built on the exact opposite idea, it was absolutely devastating.
This chart really lays it all out, doesn't it? On one side, you have a mindset based on scarcity. Men are plentiful, so they're expendable. The result is an ethic of pure self-sacrifice. On the other side, you've got a mindset of abundance. Men are a precious investment, worth recovering. And the result of that is an entire industry built to preserve them. It was a philosophical war, and it was one with logistics. And that brings us right back to where we started. Back to Corporal Yamamoto in that cave. He didn't make it. Just 3 days after he saw those helicopters, he was killed. And not by the Americans. He was killed by one of his own officers because he tried to surrender. According to the other soldiers who were there, his last words were about how unbearably unfair it was to be fighting an enemy that would have moved heaven and earth to save his life, while serving an army that only demanded his death.
So, in the end, this whole story isn't just about saving lives. It's about a society that was so wealthy, so organized, that it could look at compassion not as a feeling, but as a logistical problem to be solved with machines and systems. And that leaves us with one heck of a question to chew on. What happens when an army learns how to industrialize compassion?